Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will be a warm one, with the high reaching 93.7 degrees Fahrenheit and the low settling at 70.6 degrees. Remember to stay hydrated and find some shade as the day progresses. First up, we'll unpack the discussion around President Trump's reported desire to send troops to a particular city, especially given that its crime rates are actually on a downward trend. Then, we'll shift our focus to California, investigating why immigration and customs enforcement agents are reportedly making more frequent appearances within the state's hospitals. Stay with us for these in-depth reports and much more, right here on Alex's News. We begin this morning with a brewing legal and political storm in Chicago. President Donald Trump's repeated threats to deploy federal troops set the stage for a dramatic showdown, even as local officials highlight impressive crime reduction numbers. For a closer look, we turn to our reporter Ethan. Ethan, President Trump has been quite vocal about Chicago, calling it a, quote, hellhole and a killing field, end quote. What exactly has he been saying?
The president, according to military.com, has consistently described Chicago since 2016 as a, quote, hellhole, end quote, and a, quote, killing field, end quote. He claims residents are, quote, screaming for us to come, end quote, to reduce crime, comparing the city to war zones, painting a very grim picture.
A grim picture, but one sharply contradicted by recent data. What are the actual crime statistics showing us?
A striking contrast. For the first half of 2025, Chicago saw its steepest decline in violent crime in over a decade. Shootings were down 37 to 39%, homicides decreased by 32 to 33%, and total violent crime dropped over 21%. LiveMint.com reports year-to-date crime is also down, with a University of Chicago expert calling it, quote, better than the rest of the country, end quote.
Remarkable numbers. How are Chicago officials explaining this turnaround?
It's largely attributed to, quote, smart, community-focused investments, end quote, and a holistic approach, according to BeaumontEnterprise.com. Key are community violence intervention, or CVI programs. The state-funded Peacekeepers program, deploying over 200 community members, has shown over 40% reduction in gun violence in some areas, as reported by WTTW.com.
So tackling the roots. But despite this, Trump's threats persist. What's the reaction from Chicago's leadership and residents?
Opposition is fierce. Governor J.B. Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson, according to AlJazeera.com, rejected the idea as, quote, unprecedented and unwarranted, end quote, and, quote, illegal, end quote. Pritzker accused Trump of trying to, quote, manufacture a crisis, end quote, and, quote, politicize Americans, end quote, vowing legal action. Even a Trump supporter, Alderman Nick Sposato, called it a, quote, terrible idea, end quote, fearing untrained troops. This threat isn't just ruffling feathers. It's causing a full-fledged foul play.
Quite the united front. Ethan, on legal challenges, what are the limitations on a president's authority to deploy federal troops without the governor's consent?
The Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 generally prohibits the U.S. military for domestic law enforcement. However, the Insurrection Act is a key exception. It allows deployment without state consent under specific circumstances, like suppressing an insurrection. Historically, President Eisenhower federalized the Arkansas National Guard in 1957. Reports indicated President Trump federalized the National Guard in Los Angeles in 2025 without Governor Newsom's consent.
And what do officials believe are President Trump's true motivations, given Chicago's positive trajectory?
Governor Pritzker is direct. He suggests Trump's actions are an attempt to, quote, intimidate his political rivals, end quote, by deploying the military in a, quote, blue city in a blue state, end quote, according to LiveMint.com. He calls it a, quote, dangerous power grab, end quote. Pritzker notes higher crime rates in some red states, while the Trump administration cut over $800 million in public safety grants.
More than meets the eye. Finally, Ethan, how does Chicago's crime reduction compare to national trends?
Chicago's progress is truly exceptional. A Council on Criminal Justice report found homicides were, on average, 17% lower across 42 U.S. cities in the first half of 2025. While New York and Los Angeles saw significant drops, Chicago's 32 to 33% reduction in homicides and 37 to 39% drop in shootings significantly exceed these national averages, as reported by WTTW.com. Chicago is really hitting it out of the park.
Ethan, thank you for that incredibly detailed and insightful report. It's a complex situation, and your insights certainly shed a lot of light on it. That was story 1 of 2. We appreciate your reporting.
My pleasure, Grace.
We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back, everyone. We're moving on to our second story this morning, which has California hospitals in a state of alarm. We're talking about a significant surge in the presence of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, agents within medical facilities across the state. Joining us to break down this complex and concerning development is our news reporter, Chloe. Chloe, this sounds like a very sensitive situation indeed. What exactly is happening?
It truly is, Grace. California hospitals are grappling with a sudden increase in ICE agents, a direct consequence of a policy change enacted by the Trump administration in January 2025. This administration rescinded the Biden-era sensitive locations policy, which previously offered crucial protections for healthcare facilities. According to reporting from Times CBS News and Times NILC, this protective guidance meant ICE agents were instructed to refrain from enforcement actions in places like hospitals, schools, and places of worship, ensuring people could seek care without fear. The rescission has completely reversed that, creating a climate of fear among patients and an urgent call from healthcare workers for clear guidance.
So, this sensitive locations policy essentially created a safe haven for those seeking medical care. Can you elaborate on what those protections entailed before they were removed?
Absolutely, Grace. Until January 2025, the Biden administration's policy, formalized and expanded in October 2021 by then DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, considered medical facilities as protected areas. This meant ICE agents were to avoid arrests, interviews, searches, and surveillance for immigration enforcement purposes to the fullest extent possible, as sources like Venable and Healthcare Dive reported. While not an absolute legal ban, it put special procedural considerations in place, effectively preventing widespread ICE operations in public hospital spaces. The removal of this policy by an executive order and a memo from the acting Homeland Security Secretary now grants ICE agents much broader discretion, emphasizing common sense over strict limitations, according to Times CBS News.
And what has been the observable impact of this policy shift on the ground in California hospitals?
Since the policy change, federal immigration agents are more routinely showing up and increasingly appearing at hospitals across California, according to *LAist and *CalMatters. Their presence takes various unsettling forms. We're seeing agents bringing in detained individuals for medical emergencies, like at John Muir Medical Center in Concord, as Ties reported. They're also waiting in hospital lobbies for patients to be discharged, sometimes for extended periods, and in some extreme cases, even chasing people inside facilities, such as at the Ontario Advanced Surgical Center. This heightened activity has created a quote, huge sense of fear, as nurse Kate Mobine told LAist, deterring people from seeking necessary care and posing a broader public health risk. Governor Gavin Newsom has even called these actions legally dubious.
That sounds incredibly disruptive and unsettling. Have there been any specific incidents that really highlight these concerns?
Many, Grace. At John Muir Medical Center, Timed LAist detailed an incident where ICE agents brought a detained man. An attorney and the man's family were allegedly denied visitation and information, with hospital security even calling the police when the family insisted. Staff described ICE officers as very aggressive, creating a, quote, chilling effect. Another significant case at Glendale Memorial Hospital saw ICE agents occupying the lobby for up to 15 days, waiting for an immigrant from El Salvador, Milagros Solis Portillo, to be discharged, as Knott's LAist and TimesIHeart.com reported. Photos even showed agents behind reception desks. She was eventually taken into custody. And as mentioned, at the Ontario Advanced Surgical Centre, agents pursued a landscaper, Dennis Guion-Soli, inside the facility. 2 healthcare workers who confronted the agent were initially charged with felony assault, though those charges were later dismissed.
This really puts hospitals in a difficult position. What are the legal ramifications and ambiguities for healthcare providers when faced with these situations?
That's the crux of the issue, Grace. While hospital lobbies are generally considered public spaces where agents can be present, federal agents cannot search private areas like patient rooms or retrieve medical records without a federal court warrant signed by a judge, according to *LAist. An ICE administrative warrant, often used for arrests, does not grant access to non-public areas or authorize the release of patient information, as clarified by Claude Sonnet 4 via Gemini Flash. Federal HIPAA regulations protect patient privacy, and California state law further requires health facilities to keep immigration status confidential. So it's a minefield of legal questions for hospital staff.
So what steps are being taken to address these significant concerns? Are there any legislative efforts in the works?
There is, Grace. Healthcare workers are demanding clear guidance and training. California Attorney General Rob Bonta issued updated guidance in December 2024, advising facilities against documenting patients' immigration status unless medically necessary, and reiterating that ICE administrative warrants don't authorize access to non-public areas, as reported by TimesIHeart.com. Beyond that, California State Senators Jesse Arreguin and Sasha Renee Perez are championing new legislation, Senate Bill 81, or SB 81. This bill is in its final stages of legislative review, having been ordered to its 3rd reading in the Assembly 6 days ago on August 21, 2025, according to Gemini 2.5 Pro via Gemini Flash.
And what would SB 81 specifically aim to do?
SB 81 is quite comprehensive. It would prohibit healthcare providers from allowing immigration enforcement officials access to non-public areas without a valid judicial warrant, expanding the definition of medical information to include immigration status, and generally prohibiting sharing this information with immigration agencies without consent or a judicial warrant. It also mandates that healthcare entities establish procedures for monitoring visitors, immediately notify management of immigration enforcement requests, and provide staff training. Essentially, it aims to extend existing protections to all health facilities statewide, providing a legislative prescription for this urgent problem.
It sounds like California is really trying to patch up the holes left by the federal policy change. Chloe, thank you for that incredibly comprehensive report on what is certainly a very challenging situation for our healthcare system.
My pleasure, Grace.
We'll be right back after this short break. Here are some other headlines. In international markets, it was a mixed bag for Asian stocks, as investors are holding their breath for the latest earnings report from U.S. chip giant NVIDIA. All eyes are on the AI bellwether to see if the news will be artificially intelligent or signal a market correction. The uncertainty sent Chinese benchmarks sinking, with property and pharmaceutical companies dragging the markets down. Looks like some investors feel those sectors need a dose of their own medicine. Elsewhere, Japan, South Korea, and Australia saw modest gains, while Taiwan's stock market climbed after an official downplayed the potential impact of U.S. tariffs on its critical chip industry. In New Jersey, federal prosecutors are seeking a prison term of at least 7 years for Nadine Menendez, the wife of disgraced former Senator Bob Menendez. Prosecutors argue she wasn't just along for the ride, but played a, quote, pivotal role in the wide-ranging bribery scheme that included cash, gold bars, and a luxury Mercedes. Her defense team is pleading for a much lighter sentence of just over a year, arguing a lengthy term would be a quote, death sentence due to her ongoing battle with breast cancer. Her husband is already serving an 11-year sentence for his conviction on 16 counts, including acting as a foreign agent. Nadine Menendez's sentencing is scheduled for September 11th. A tense standoff is unfolding in southern Colombia, where 34 soldiers have been taken captive by villagers. The civilians are reportedly acting on the orders of a dissident FARC rebel group. The kidnapping followed a firefight where a rebel commander was killed, and the villagers' primary demand is the return of his body. Colombia's defense minister is calling the act an illegal kidnapping and has vowed to deploy the military to secure the soldiers' release. This is the second such incident in recent months, highlighting the persistent grip of armed groups in the nation's rural, coca-rich regions. And a major deal to restructure the staggering $9 billion debt of the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority has suddenly collapsed, plunging the island's economic recovery into darkness. The deal fell apart after key bondholders, including BlackRock, backed out following a sudden shakeup of the federal board overseeing the island's finances. This unraveling threatens to prolong Puerto Rico's 7-year bankruptcy and could lead to even higher electricity bills for residents already dealing with an unreliable grid. The utilities debt is the last major piece of the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. Finally, a political earthquake in Bolivia, where the long-ruling Movement Toward Socialism Party, or MAS, has been virtually obliterated in Congress. The once dominant party lost all 21 of its Senate seats, and all but 2 of its 75 seats in the lower house. The catastrophic defeat is being blamed on a severe economic crisis and a bitter internal power struggle that fractured the party. The nation has been grappling with fuel and dollar shortages, and it seems voters decided the party had simply run out of steam. The results paved the way for a presidential runoff in October between a centrist and a right-wing candidate. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.